That report by Foreign Affairs Editor John Simpson. I'm joined now from Washington by the Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, here in the studio by Kamran Shafi, who's the Minister of Information, the Pakistani High Commission, and indeed John Simpson. First of all, can you make a very quick recap on the essence of the trilogy of films?
Our first film on Wednesday was about the siege of Kabul, the pointless fighting, the terrible destruction it does, the way in which Afghanistan's neighbors are fighting out proxy wars through Afghans, and they are the victims of it, and how the West does absolutely nothing to mediate, though it perfectly well could. The second was a film about the Taliban itself, this extraordinary ultra-fundamentalist movement with its weird, to us, habits and attitudes, and suggested that it had in fact probably passed its peak, that it would no longer now control the whole of Afghanistan.
Congressman Rohrabacher, surely America's position is pretty cynical. You got what you wanted in Afghanistan, you got the Soviets out, and now you've turned your back on the country. Aren't you ashamed of that position?
Well, first of all, let me note that the United States, I'm getting a little feedback here, I'm sorry. Let me note that the United States stood up against Soviet aggression, and by supporting different people around the world who were fighting against Soviet aggression, often without the support of any of our allies, we managed to defeat the Soviet Union in the Cold War without it ever having become a hot war between the United States and between the West and the Soviet Union. I think supporting the Afghan freedom fighters, and we spent billions of dollars doing that, was a commendable thing to do, because in the end it resulted in a breakdown of the Soviet military structure and the Soviet military threat to the West.
Inadvertently, then, you also supported a huge drug trade. You also colluded in the development of a huge heroin trade.
That's garbage. That's total garbage. The fact is, the Saudis were giving hundreds of millions of dollars. We were giving, if not billions of dollars, we gave billions of dollars to the effort. That was not financed by the drug trade, and that now, that's not to say there weren't some poppies being grown there, but for people to say that that's where the resources came from, they don't know what they're talking about.
Mr. Shafi, if Pakistan came out clearly against what the Taliban are doing rather than actually helping them, the very people who are raining shells indiscriminately on Kabul and running this drug trade, don't you think that you could silence the guns?
There is no currency whatsoever in Pakistan helping the Taliban, or any other side for that matter, in the Afghan conflict, because of our long border with Afghanistan. Never lose sight of the fact that were Afghanistan to be destabilized, as it is now, the effects are felt in Pakistan. We've got explosions every 2 months or so. We had a huge one in Peshawar, not more than 3 or 4 months ago. We have them in Quetta. We have the problem too. Pakistan has no favorites at all. Pakistan welcomes any mediation, whether it's by the OIC or by the UN, or indeed by any other power.
But if you say that you're not funding the Taliban and you're not taking sides, don't you think that perhaps you should be more proactive in the region and actually trying to move forward to end the fighting?
Pakistan has been very active. I'll take you back to 1994, when there was the Islamabad Declaration, and all the parties to the Afghan conflict were there. President Rabbani himself agreed to leave power according to a formula. He did not do it in 94. He did not do it in 95. He refused the UN's protestations. The point is, we should like him, as indeed the UN does, to be just one of the faction leaders, and not the president of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, of Afghanistan, especially when there is such little area under his command. John Simpson.
Well, I think that's a very noble viewpoint. I just think that it would be very nice if the Taliban and the government forces could be encouraged to get together, and it can't be beyond the possibility that the Pakistanis, who do have a certain amount of influence with the Taliban, might be able to urge them to do precisely that. The fear certainly exists that Pakistan and the other neighboring countries around Afghanistan are actually quite keen to keep it going, because it keeps Afghanistan quiet, it keeps them all occupied, and they don't bother anybody else round about.
Mr. Rohrabacher, do you think a key to all this might be to create some kind of understanding between Pakistan and Iran over this?
Well, I'm very doubtful that the people who now control Iran are going to be dealt with in a way that will be constructive in Afghanistan or anywhere else. But there should be some more involvement by the United States. In fact, the criticism about the United States is after the war, the United States just let things go and did not participate in trying to solve some of the problems and put Afghanistan back on a course towards a stable situation. And then the people did have to turn in a big way to growing poppies and doing other things that were contrary to the interests of the West and attacked the very health of the Western nations. So the United States and Pakistan, I think the United States and Pakistan should take a more aggressive role in trying to find a peaceful solution and bring Afghanistan into the community of nations so that their people don't have to grow poppies just to stay alive.
But why don't you think there is a particular appetite in America for the U.S. to take such an active role? You clearly favor an active role, but do you have significant backing?
Well, I certainly favor an active role, and I've been to Peshawar, and during the war, most people know that I was actually in Afghanistan during the war, and I'm one of the few American members of Congress who did that.
Well, would you go there again and just see what John Simpson's had to see? Would you go there again now and see how a country is imploding?
Well, I just was up in Peshawar on the border.
It's not exactly Afghanistan, is it? I mean, it's like saying I was just recently near France. You know, I live in England.
Yeah.
I just think that there's so much ignorance that I'm afraid an awful lot of American politicians know absolutely zero about Afghanistan.
I think that's true. They support
all sorts of absolutely crazy ideas about the way Afghanistan should continue.
Well, one of the American ideas, Mr. Shafi, was to have an international arms embargo. Do you think there's any chance of an international arms embargo being enforceable in Afghanistan?
Pakistan's position has been anything that is enforced, and we'll do our best to help the world enforce it. Anything that will put down the tensions, anything that will bring peace back to Afghanistan.
Thank you all very much indeed for joining me tonight.